All right, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning again. My name is Megan Dooley, and I work in the Office of Alumni Relations. Thank you so much for joining us today. And so this is our first virtual First Friday and Alumni Relations webinar, and just a few housekeeping notes for everyone before we go ahead and get started. I know this is a different format than what some of you are used to, but we can view this webinar like a virtual lecture hall, and Rachel will be our lovely speaker this morning. Please feel free to use the question and answer function at the bottom of the screen to ask any questions you have for Rachel, or I'll also be monitoring the chat. And I will read those out for Rachel throughout the program. And I think we're ready to get started. Allison, if you want to introduce
Sure.
Rachel.
Great. Hi, everyone. Glad you're here. My name's Allison Vogler. I work in the Office of Plan Giving with Rhonda and Nina. And we're just so thrilled to be able to connect with you today. And that's all due to the fabulous team of Megan Dooley and company and Alumni Relations. Thank you so much. They have worked so hard in this new challenging time to bring programs to our alumni. So thank you very much, Megan. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Rachel Turk. She is our first ever sports psychologist for the University of Richmond Athletic Department. And it's very exciting to have her here. She came to us this fall after completing her doctorate in psychology at Radford University in August of 2019. She also earned her master's of clinical counseling psychology at Radford in 2015, and she completed her undergraduate work at Lynchburg College. You'll see her mug there, and she's presenting. And she was a psychology major and also a 4-year letter winner in volleyball there. So she's got the student athlete experience as well. Before she came to us at Richmond, she was an intern at Appalachian State University, and she specialized in working with trauma survivor students, students with eating disorders, and student athletes. So we're thrilled to have her at Richmond. She works with our student athletes, both with mental health concerns and performance anxiety enhancements to help them succeed. So further ado, take it away, Rachel.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for that great introduction. I'm very excited to be here with you this morning. Like you just heard, I am one of our licensed clinical psychologists through the Counseling Center, but I actually work in the athletics department and have an office over there in the Robbins Center because my work is specifically with our varsity student athletes. So today, I think I get to talk to you a little bit about my position, why it was put into place, the types of things that I do. I have some great videos from some of our student athletes to talk a little bit about the stuff that I've been doing this year. And then I also have some information for you about sort of everything going on with COVID-19, just because I know this is a really trying time for everyone. And I think I would be doing you all a disservice if I didn't also put some of that out here, and some of the team that helped put on this presentation thought that you might appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you so you can see the PowerPoint that I have created. So give me just one moment. And while I'm getting that set up, one of the things that I want to mention to everybody is just part of my role and my role. I'm trained as a mental health professional and a generalist. So the big part with putting on this position and creating this position was so that our student athletes had a mental health resource specific to them. And so whereas I do a lot of sports performance work, and some of the stuff you're going to hear from our students is about sports performance, a big chunk of what I do is mental health related. And so I will talk to you a little bit about that later on in this presentation. So let's get my PowerPoint up there for you. Okay, hopefully everyone can see this. This is a little bit new for me too. I've never done a Zoom webinar where I can't see anyone and can't hear anyone really talking back to me. So I look forward to hearing questions along the way, and feel free to jump in there and type something in so that Megan can pass it along in between slides. So just a brief overview for you of what we're going to do today, and I'm not going to read through this. I want to talk a lot about some of the steps that make my position what it is, and at the very end. So before I decided to talk about my specific position, I wanted to make sure that you all knew, I'm not sure how familiar people are with our CAP services at UR. So at the Counseling Center, we see students for a variety of reasons, and this is the entire student body. We see for issues like anxiety, depression, any relationship or family concerns, stuff going on with school, and everything on that list there and more. So there's not really a reason that people don't come into the Counseling Center. Sometimes when they do come in, what we have to offer isn't best fitting what they need. And so if that's the case, we'll get them connected to other resources on campus because we have so many wonderful resources. But specifically, some things that we do with our students is do some time in some brief individual therapy, so working one-on-one through some of these issues. We have psychiatric providers who can manage medications for our student athletes and our student body if they are engaging in therapy as well. We also have begun to offer a lot of group programs, and that's something we're really trying to push this year, next year, and really get going so that we can serve more people. And a lot of really great work happens in group. And then we also do outreaches programs, stuff like this type of presentation, any type of consultation. If someone's worried about a student, we can talk to basically anybody about how to handle it. So when they were creating my position, there's a lot out there on what student athletes experience and why it may be a little bit more challenging than the typical student. Now, everybody has stressors and everybody has stuff going on in their day-to-day life. There's a lot of things that run through most people's lives at some point or another. What I try to tell people is at some point in someone's life, about 80% of people need some sort of support or formal mental health resource. That doesn't mean that it may be a diagnosable issue, but it's just something that can be helpful for. Within athletics, what we knew before my position was created is that across the country, and specifically at Richmond, we had lower levels of student athletes and males using our services than any other population, and in disproportion to our student body. And so that was something we really wanted to hone in on and make sure that they were getting the support that they needed. One of the reasons that we see student athletes and athletes, high performance athletes in general, use lower levels of services is some of these things that are up here on the screen right now. Specifically, their schedules are absolutely insane. So I'm not sure how much of a connection some of you have to our student athletes, but I know in working with them on a day-to-day, 5 a.m. and aren't wrapping up till 10 p.m. or later, based on being in season, out of season, traveling, having a full class load, getting all their workouts in, making sure they get meals in, having group projects. It's just a really hectic schedule. And so having my position over there available to them in the building that they spend so much time in was a huge factor in creating my position. A couple of the other things, and again, I'm not going to go through every point on the slide, but the big ones that really pop out to me is the culture of athletics. So being an athlete myself and growing up in a family full of athletes and coaches, you can recognize that as long as you are in sports, you're being told, like, be tough, suck it up, get through this, push harder, have mental toughness. And so all of those things don't really lend itself to getting help. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because there are a lot of areas of athletics that you do have to push and get stronger and be tougher. And at the same time, those areas are not mental health related. And so what I try to differentiate between is this mental toughness and this whole sort of aura of what it means to be an athlete and be strong, and that getting help isn't a weakness. It's actually a strength. And it really is going to benefit our student athletes, not only in their personal life, but in their academic life, in their athletic life. And it's really important to make sure that we recognize they have the same amount of mental health issues as the typical student body. They just tend to seek services at a lower level because of the culture that's ingrained. So one of my big goals this year and moving forward is to really break that down and make sure that people feel like they can come in and get help, and that it's not a weakness, and that they know that it's going to benefit them in a lot of ways. There are a lot of other things on this slide that I think are really important to pay attention to. But I know specifically, like, we've started a season and career ending injury clinic. So not only do they work with their physical therapist, their athletic trainers through sports medicine, their strength and conditioning coach, but now they also meet with me, because we know that's one of the times where our student athletes are most at risk for mental health concerns, because they're isolated from their teams. They can't use physical activity to cope like they used to. And so there's a lot of different stuff going on for them at that point. So I'm going to slowly switch to the next slide and just check and make sure no one has any questions about why, maybe we see higher levels of stress and issues in our student athletes. Okay, so I wanted to include just some background information. NCAA has done a really great job in the past couple of years of enhancing their focus on students. And so they did a goals study, and I just pulled some pieces from that goals study that they did in 2016, and some pieces that specifically will relate to the work that I do and why maybe having a position like this is important to support those student athletes. Just the fact that so many of them are reporting feeling overwhelmed during the past month, I think is incredible, and that they're having so much trouble focusing on the other demands that they have in their life because of how exhausted they are feeling. I think a really cool statistic that I have in here is how many student athletes believe that their coach cares about their mental well-being. And I know that's something I've gotten to feel firsthand when I've come to Richmond, and it's been different than other places that I've been before, is just the fact that our student athletes and our coaches and all of the staff that surround our athletics department were so excited about a position like this and so engaged with the things that I can do. And so getting me involved with different types of team sessions, getting in to meet every team, really just encouraging their people come and see me, using me for consultation. So our athletics department was just excited, and that excitement showed in the number of people coming in, which is a great thing. So NCAA, like I said, they did this goals study. They've put out a lot of different things. And so going off of that, they've also put out mental health best practices. So they put out a lot of best practices. And this one specifically is related to mental health. And so I wanted to put it up here because, again, this is part of what my position was created out of. So there are, they wanted athletics departments to have a licensed provider who is trained in mental health, and not just sports performance, but trained in mental health, to be able to provide services to the student athletes. They also wanted a procedure to be able to identify and refer student athletes to a practitioner, and pre-participation mental health screenings, along with the health promotion sort of environment and well-being. So the first one obviously is creating this position with somebody like me who has a background specifically in mental health, but also has specialty in working with student athletes. And part of that procedure is, like, we've done a lot of things in athletics, and some of it was going before I even got here, to identify these students through, whether it be coaches, through our academic staff, through our strength and conditioning staff, our sports med staff, any of our leadership or administrative staff. So we all come together pretty frequently to be able to discuss anybody that we're worried about and make sure that we have a plan in place for how to best care for those students and make sure they get the support that they need if they need that. Mental health screenings, this is something that's very new. So we started doing this summer with our student athletes, and all of our freshmen and transfer athletes did a brief online screening, and then came and met with me one-on-one. And so that was a really great opportunity for me to be able to get to know our athletes since I was new here, and to be able to sort of be a friendly face. They knew where my office was. So now if they had an issue, they could come back to me. Not to mention, we now had sort of this baseline data for if somebody maybe already has a little bit higher levels of anxiety or depression going on, or if they need to be connected to resources immediately once getting to school, because that's a big transition for a lot of people. The last thing, the overall promoting this well-being and resilience, I think our team in the athletics department has done a great job of creating a lot of programming for our student athletes. So we do things like our Wellness Wednesdays, where we have, a different topic, and we have different things available like therapy dogs and maybe massages, or different presentations and information education from me or from another person from our team to give this environment. And then more so, it's just ramping up the services that we have available to our student athletes. So I know I've already touched on this some with what I've talked about so far, but I wanted to give a brief overview of the types of things that I do. It's really hard to give you like what's a typical day look like for me, because every day is different. But in general, I would say a little bit over half of my week is spent in one-on-one therapy with our student athletes. And so that may mean stuff related to sport, or it can be any of the other concerns that I talked about earlier. And a lot of times, to be honest, it's a combination of both. And so that's something that people don't always recognize. A lot of times sports performance is what will get people through my door because that's a little less threatening. But by the time we start talking about what's really going on, they also have stressors in other areas of your life. As you all probably know, it's not just one aspect of your life siloed by itself that doesn't affect anything else. It tends to permeate into all areas of your life. So when you're having a tough day because of one reason, it then maybe impacts how you feel throughout the day, how you're doing at work, or when you're having different like meeting up with people for lunch or whatever it may be. And so we see that in our student athletes too. So that's a big part of what I do. That also includes, we have created what's called an athletic check-in appointment that just allows me to have that contact with students who maybe other people are worried about that haven't come to me yet. To again, make them aware that I'm a resource to them, comforting face, so that it's not as scary, because a lot of people have this idea that therapy is like what you see on TV. Unfortunately, a lot of different movies and TV programs put mental health and any type of mental health services in a really bad light. And so that also makes people sort of hesitant to come in for stuff. And then, like I mentioned earlier, our sports injury clinic. I also have begun to get to do a lot of group services. And so a part of a team or coach or whoever will reach out to me and say that their team needs something specific, and ask me if I can come in and work with them. Sometimes it's just a one-time thing. Sometimes it's multiple different like sessions based on different things, and maybe it's just ongoing throughout the year or season. So that's been something that I really enjoy doing. And I hope that the more that I get to do that, the more it actually reduces people's needs to use me individually, because doing that type of outreach, getting some of those skills into people earlier, is more preventative, just like preventative healthcare. And so it can sort of reduce or give people more skills to be able to manage what's going on for them. I also do a lot of different types of services with like coaches and staff, maybe do different trainings with them. I know I've been partnering with sports medicine a lot to provide them some different aspects, because they're on the front line and they see things before I do. The same with coaches. Those are the people that are in the everyday working with these student athletes. And so sometimes it's really helpful to get them some information and how to handle things. And then that goes straight into the next point, is consultation. So I oftentimes will have a coach or a staff member or somebody email me or call me, ask to set up a time to meet, because they have a situation going on with a student athlete that they're not quite sure how to handle, and they want to handle it the best way they can. And so that's something that, I always make time for in my schedule and figure out a way to fit in, and we have a conversation and then go forward with a plan. And that plan may include me or it may not. And so that's something that is available to anybody, whether or not they're in the athletics department, but also something that our counseling center does as a whole. And then the last thing that really is sort of encompassing a lot is what I put under other. I tend to, especially once I'm working with a team, be going to games, be going to practices, meets, sort of try to be around. That was a big part of my role in the fall, and when people, didn't know me yet, because in order for people to trust me with things going on in their life, I think it's important for them to see that I support them, see that I'm around, that I'm, just another part of their team. And so I try to get out to as many things as I can, and I still do. And being a former athlete, I love being at athletics events. So this is sort of like the perfect combination about in my life. I also, will guest lecture for different courses that are related to my areas of interest. I'll advocate for our students if there's different meetings, different things that they think that they need that isn't happening. I try to go into sort of higher level meetings and have those conversations. We've started up a student athlete group that's interested in mental health. And so I advise that student group and any activities they put on. And hopefully, maybe you all will be seeing coming up, they're going to partner with me on creating some really short videos on different types of coping skills and how to manage different things while people are home. And so that's something that we're going to try and put out on social media. And then different types of interviews, presentations, whatever else it may be, things like this. So again, I'll go slowly on to the next slide in case anyone has questions. So this is just a list through some of the presentations, trainings, workshops, programming I've done with either teams or staff so far this year. Some of these have been programs that have gone on like multiple weeks. So for example, I did with our swim and dive team, which you'll hear about from one of our students in a minute, and with our football team, I've done sort of ongoing programs. I'm starting one with women's soccer right now. And so that mental edge program is something that I've created, and I specify it to each team and their needs. So after talking to the team and talking to the coaches and figuring out a little bit more of what they want to get more of, I pull together different things that I have, and I do separate sessions on different topics. So some of those topics are included in here, things like confidence building, performance anxiety, performance enhancement, and some of them may not be. I do a lot of like relationship building and communication because that's so important in athletics. And then again, some of these other things are just things that have been one time, certain sports or coaches or staff have requested. But I just wanted to give you an idea of here are some of the things that I'm doing with the groups. Okay. So now we're going to go into, and I hope it works. I had some videos of some of our student athletes who I've worked with their teams. Again, this is something that they have all voluntarily done. This is not, I did not ask individual therapy clients because like I haven't mentioned, which I should have, I am a completely confidential resource for our student athletes with very small exceptions to some like legal issues. But for the most part, I'm one of the few on campus who does not have to tell anybody anything that they say. And to be honest, that's one of the reasons a lot of student athletes me because I can't report back. I cannot even confirm or deny if somebody is an individual client of mine. And so my confidentiality standards are sort of even above and beyond maybe some of what our medical staff are, which is a really great thing and also can be really challenging sometimes for people to understand. But I did want to make that clear first because these students who have decided to speak, I was hoping if we did this live to be able to get them to come in, maybe one or two to come in and talk about their experience because it's always great to hear from them. So instead, I reached out to the teams that I had worked with and asked if anyone would be interested in talking about just a very vague question of what has it meant to them to have this position, for the university to sort of invest in this position for them, and what have they or their team gotten out of the work that we've done this year. So I sort of left it to them to talk about it in any way that they wanted, and we will go through these. So we'll get started, and I'm going to adjust the volume so hopefully that you can hear. But again, this is the first time doing this. So also the words, because it's coming back through my speaker to you, it may be a little delayed from what their mouths are moving. So just be prepared for that. It's not you. It's the way that this works. Okay.
Hello, my name is Lexi Gilbert, and I am a graduating senior on the women's swim and dive team. This year, our team had the opportunity to work extensively with Dr. Turk. I truly believe that Dr. Turk helped shape a team that was open, honest, and supportive of one another. Swimming Division I can be quite challenging, and oftentimes throughout the highs and lows of the season, your mental strength can be depleted. With Dr. Turk, our team was able to have open conversations that allowed us to voice our struggles and how we can cope and support one another and how we can be a unified team. Our weekly meetings not only focused on mental health purposes, but also focused on sport enhancement strategies as well. We discussed goal setting, visualization, and stress management. All of these tools we were able to practice throughout the season. We were extremely lucky to have Dr. Turk travel with us to Geneva, Ohio for our A10 championship meet. There, she helped us practice the tools she had taught us in order to focus, remain calm, and to allow us to have fun. The sports psychologist role is a crucial role for the athletic department. I believe Richmond is so lucky that we get to have Dr. Turk and get to learn from her. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm just going to jump through these just so that we make sure we can hear them all.
Hi everyone, my name is Mackenzie Montgomery and I'm a lacrosse player here at the University of Richmond. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who made it possible to bring on Dr. Turk as our sports psychologist on staff at the athletic department this year. I think after losing a fellow student athlete last year made our entire campus community a lot more aware of the impact that mental health can have on individuals, especially our student athletes. As a psychology major here at the University of Richmond, I've learned that it is super important to be able to have someone to talk about anything and everything with, and having Dr. Turk as a resource at the University of Richmond really does give people an unbiased source to speak to things about, whether it's school, social life, or athletics. For our lacrosse team in particular, she was very helpful in calming anxieties and nerves before our run tests that we have in the beginning of our fall and spring season, as well as just being able to have someone to talk to about maybe performance anxiety before practice and games. It's been really helpful for us in that sense too. On a more personal note, Dr. Turk and I worked very closely throughout the end of last semester and the beginning of spring semester to get one of our lacrosse games dedicated to the foundation, One Love, which tries to raise awareness of relationship violence and sexual assault, especially among college athletes. Dr. Turk and one of her fellow counselors in the CAPS department, Dr. Day, were able to run a workshop for us, further educating our team on unhealthy and healthy relationship signs. Although our season was unfortunately cut short and we weren't able to have the game dedication, I think that the workshop that Dr. Turk helped conduct was very beneficial to our team as a whole. And now that our team is more educated on these signs, we can easily help each other more, as well as other people in our community and our friend groups. As a student athlete here at Richmond, our lives are a lot more busy than the typical student on campus. We have a lot more commitments that we're juggling, such as practice, film, lift, etc. So having a counselor designated to the athletic department makes it a lot easier to schedule sessions on various days and different hours. I would love for you all to highly consider having Dr. Turk return back next year as part of our staff, as she has been a great addition to not only the school, but to each athletic team in general. Thanks. I hope you guys are all staying healthy, and go Spiders.
All right, next.
Hi, my name is Kobe Turner. I'm a defensive tackle at the University of Richmond, and I'm a redshirt junior going into this next season. So just speaking to sports psychology and kind of the role that that's played within Dr. Turk's past year being here, I really felt the presence and need. We'd set up some meetings, our coach set up some meetings with her, and she'd come in and talk to us about confidence, goal setting, expectations, and how to move on to the next play, and just encouraging our teammates, and really just different ways to establish a mental edge when it came to the game of football. And it was super important. I remember I started off the year not feeling as confident, and through these things, through these tools, I really did feel like I gained a mental edge to go into that season, and it led me to having one of the best seasons that I've ever played, ever had. So yeah, I think it's super important because it's a side of the game that's not talked about, a side of sports that's not really discussed as much. Your coaches don't really talk too much about the mental aspect of things, but it is something that can give you the extra edge, an extra leg up, and something that has been proven to be very beneficial for me. So yeah.
All right, and then last.
Hi, my name is Maddie Chow, and I'm a senior diver on the swim and dive team. And I just want to talk a little bit about how important Dr. Turk and her work has been to not only me personally, but to my team as well. I saw Dr. Turk throughout the year this year for sports-related anxiety issues, and it was just so helpful having her in the building and having her sports psychology background to just help me get through the season. And I'm just so grateful that she was there and I could schedule meetings with her before or after practice. It was just so convenient and just so nice to have her around. We also saw her once a week throughout the year as a full team, and she helped us a lot on communication between our team building skills, performance enhancement skills, stuff like that. And I really think it had a huge positive impact on our team dynamic as a whole. She also came to our championship meet this year in Ohio, and that was so nice to have her there. It was such a comfort to have her cheering for us on the sidelines, knowing that she knew what we'd gone through and knew how to help us when it came to performance and just things related to that. In light of everything going on right now, I think it's just so important that there are mental health workers available for everyone. I think being a student athlete can be really stressful, and there's a stigma surrounding athletes getting help because we're supposed to be tough and we just can't ask for anything. And I just think having her there, it's just so easy to see her and to know that there are other athletes that are seeing her too. And it just breaks that stigma down. And I really hope that her position is still there next year.
All right. So those were 4 of our student athletes from 4 of the teams that I've worked with this year. And to be honest, I had no idea what they were going to say before this. And some of them did not know that this position has been approved for a permanent 10-month position at this point. But they do not know that yet, so I will be relaying that back to them. But it was wonderful to hear all these great things for them, and just from their eyes, what the position can do and has done for them. This is the first time for them sort of having this, and most of the individuals that I see have not had the opportunity to work with someone in this position before. So,
Hello, my name is Lexi Gilbert,
sorry.
and I am.
We will go on to the next slide.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Montgomery.
Hi, my name is.
Okay, sorry about that. So briefly, I just want to put this up here for you all to see. This is just for people that I did see in individual therapy in the fall. I did sort of create, because the position is new, an evaluation, and I wanted you to see some of the things that they were seeing. I thought it was pretty impressive that a lot of them were saying things like, 100% of them were saying that it improved their overall well-being. Some of the other things, like improving their athletic or academic performance, the numbers are a little bit lower, and not all of them were talking about academic or performance-related concerns. So it does make sense, even though things are all interconnected. I just think it's, this is something, again, decreasing the stigma for student athletes, 96 of them saying that that's what it did. And this is a really small sample because I didn't get to give it to everybody, and obviously I didn't get to get it to anybody this semester. So we don't have a ton of numbers. I think it was somewhere between 25 and 30 who filled this out. And again, it's not specific to anyone, but they had some really great comments about why this position is important and wanting it to continue. And I just think this speaks to how sort of savvy the student athletes are and willing they are to advocate for themselves. And I think it speaks to the athletics departments and counseling centers sort of collaboration on listening to what they feel like their student athletes need and serving that need. So that's sort of where I'm going to shift into how things are changing and have changed in my role for COVID-19 and what's been going on, and then a little bit more that could be helpful for you all. So changes that have happened sort of in the wake of everything going on. Our student athletes, we had some of them that were still around over spring break, so I was still seeing people over spring break and working with teams over spring break. And then this decision was made that students wouldn't be able to come back. So this puts people, for, as you all know, in a lot of different situations of having to figure out what comes next. And for, in a therapeutic relationship, it's, you know, obviously challenging to be working with someone and then sort of abruptly have that taken away from you. So anybody who is in state, the counseling center has worked really hard and already had some services in place. So now we can provide teletherapy. Because of our licenses that we hold and the licensure in Virginia, we are only able to provide teletherapy for students who are in state right now. And so for me, again, that's only our student athletes who are still in Virginia. That does make things really challenging because our school is so heavily out of state students that it now is putting some barriers in those students' way of how do we get them connected to the services that they need. So part of what I've been doing with my students who are out of state is having conversations with them, emailing with them, talking on the phone about how do we get them connected to somebody in their community if that's something that they need. Now, a lot of people right now are saying, you know, I'm home, things are less stressful. I'm not playing my sport right now, so I don't need any of the performance enhancement stuff that we were doing. So that changes some of the clients that I'm working with specifically, but in general, as you all probably know, this is a really stressful time for a lot of people. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, a lot of like not knowing what comes next. I know a lot of the students that I've been talking to have been saying like, I don't have any of my stuff because it's all in my dorm room. So I have, you know, only the clothes that I packed for spring break. A lot of them are saying, you know, maybe I don't have a room to myself, or I don't have a place, you know, that's dedicated for me to be able to do schoolwork. And so I'm surrounded by chaos all the time. Some of them still have family members working outside the home, and so being worried about their safety and their health during this time. So there are still a lot of issues and a lot of stressors that people need support for. So I'm trying to do the best that I can with getting these referrals. We are hoping that at some point there's sort of a national statement that for a temporary period of time, we will be allowed to practice across state lines, providing teletherapy services for people, especially people we were already working with. And so that is, you know, something we're hoping for, but again, everything's moving really slowly. So in the meantime, just trying to get people any type of support that we can. So what that has turned into is now a bunch of group sessions for different sports teams that are setting things up, just to talk about the transition, what things have been like, give them some coping skills, let them see each other and talk to each other. Another big thing that I'm hearing from our student athletes is the fact that they used to spend 20, 40 hours a week around the same people, maybe more, and now they're around them not at all. And so that huge shift from these people that they spent all their time with to not seeing them hardly at all. Obviously, they're still communicating, and they are better than me, and you know, maybe better than you all at all of the technology stuff and staying in contact that way. But they're also having to spend so much time on their computers for Zoom classes and for team meetings and everything else that there comes a point that the technology, you know, gets a little bit old, and that they don't want to be doing that. I'm also spending a fair amount of time meeting with our different committees and staff to advocate for what our student athletes need, what they're telling me that they could use right now. And that has turned into, you know, us creating these videos that I mentioned earlier. It's turned into, I have sort of open hours that people can pop in and see me on Zoom and ask me a question, or if they need help getting connected, even if they weren't working with me before, I can help them with that. So we're trying to be really creative in the way that we do things now. And then last is creating new virtual programming. So again, the videos, creating different things that our athletes can have access to, whether it be, you know, sheets of coping skills, or whether it be different resources, presentations, time to come in and talk to me, a little bit of anything. So we are being very creative, or trying to be, as I know many of you are probably having to be very creative in how you stay connected in all the busyness going on right now. So I wanted to jump into something that is helpful for our athletes. I've been sharing with a lot of our athletes, but also to you. And I realize there's a lot of words on the screen, but I wanted to pull from what I was actually given. So this is from the NCAA Sports Science Institute, and they pulled it and sort of abbreviated from what NAMI recommended. So these are just some daily self-care strategies that you all and our students, athletes, and anybody can be doing to help take care of yourself during this tough time? Obviously, there are a lot of things that we can't control right now, and we're all going through this together. So nobody that I know of, nobody that I've talked to has been in this situation before, and knows exactly how to handle it. And there's not just one right way. I know it's not something that like myself or my colleagues or anybody was trained specifically for handling. And even my friends like in healthcare, my friends that are nurses and doctors and all PAs, they're also struggling with this. And so a lot of it is just what can you control and how can you over that? So some of the biggest things are really creating a routine for yourself. I know from our student athletes, a lot of them are having a tough time with sleep right now, transitioning environments, going back home, maybe not having a place to sleep that's just for them. Being on this sort of wacky schedule of sometimes they have classes at certain times, depending on where they are in the world right now, may depend on what time they have to wake up and attend those classes. There's a lot of things going on. So trying to keep a routine that's pretty normal or as normal as possible. I specifically tell people with sleep, trying to go to sleep within the same hour and wake up within the same hour of every day can do more good for your sleep than just about anything else. So having that consistency really trains your body when you should be sleeping and when you should be awake. Naps in the middle of the day can really throw people off with their sleep schedule at night if they are long naps, so longer than an hour and a half, or later in the evenings. And so just being really mindful of the types of things that you are doing to manage that, making sure you're getting some sort of activity in. I know for me, before when I was on campus, I was walking around the Robbins Center constantly, going back and forth to offices, different practices, all sorts of stuff. And now I'm walking, down the hall from one room to another in a house. And so I'm getting far, far less activity than I was before. So making sure that I'm spending time getting out. Maybe that means getting outside when it's nice out, or doing different things that are available to me for free online. Making sure that you have spaces that are dedicated both for work, but also for you, for self-care. That's a big thing I've been talking to my student athletes about because everything is running together for them. So classes are running into everything else. And they aren't having that separation that they used to have when they were here between this is school, this is sport, this is social. That's not really happening anymore because everything is taking place on their computer, in front of their computer, maybe from their couch or from their desk. And so really creating that. And then a lot of the other stuff is just staying connected. Yes, we are socially distancing, and yes, we need to do that to slow down the spread and to take care of each other in our country. And I prefer we are physically distancing, but we are not necessarily socially distancing. So staying connected with people, whether it be having a game night on sort of a social media platform or technology platform, or using different things like FaceTime or Google Hangout, anything like that, that can allow you to get some face-to-face contact, even though it's not directly face-to-face. Talking to people more on the phone or texting with people more, even emailing with people more. So finding ways to feel connected and stay connected. And maybe this gives people the opportunity, I know it's given me the opportunity to connect with, but it feels so tough to fit into my daily routine when things are normal. And so now it's just becoming natural to be doing things like Zoom meetings and FaceTime. And then also to know that there are so many aspects of support, so many avenues for support out there for you. So with that, I'm going to jump into the next slide, which are some specific from me and some things that I've pulled from different places, tips and resources. So one is just limit the time that you're spending reading, watching information about what's going on. Obviously stay informed. And when you are staying informed, focusing on trusted sources, CDC, WHO, NAMI, all different things that are just based in, science and fact. But then limit that time, like staying in touch with it, but limiting it because it can really weigh pretty heavily on people. Being kind to yourself and acknowledging that you're having emotions. It's okay to have time to process them. This is something that I'm really honing in on with our student athletes. They are not in control of a lot of things right now. And so the thing that I'm telling them is we are in a global pandemic right now. You do not have to be functioning at your highest level. Yes, you are typically a very high functioning, motivated student athlete, and that's what's gotten you to where you are right now to get to be a D1 athlete. But it's okay if you have days where you're not feeling super motivated. everybody's experiencing this right now. We want to try to capitalize on time that you do feel more motivated, maybe after a workout, maybe after you had a really great conversation with someone. Use that time productively. So use that time to work on schoolwork or to get things done that you need to get done. But be kind to yourself and not beat yourself up about the fact that it's not going to be perfect, and you do not need to be perfect right now. You can take it one day at a time, slow things down a little bit. That whole fear of the future and uncertainty and not knowing what's coming next can be really challenging. So really focus on what can you control today? How can you put things in your schedule to look forward to today or this week? Again, acknowledging your emotions. There's a lot of fear, frustration, anger, anxiety, stress for a lot of people right now. It's okay to feel that. Let yourself feel that. Write about it. Talk to somebody about it. Let it out. Let yourself process it. Pushing it down really is going to make things harder because we're going to be in this situation for the foreseeable future. And so we want to try to manage it as it's coming up. And then again, I don't like saying find the silver lining in the situation we're in right now, because this is really truly a terrible situation. But there can be positives in it. And if you can find positives or even neutral things that you can focus on, that's great. So positives about, maybe being able to keep other people safe by what you're doing. Maybe you get more time to connect and call people or work on projects that you hadn't had time to work on before. So find out if there are ways. At the bottom that you all can access, again, the CDC. Our Richmond CAPS website, we have created a whole list of resources on there. So I figured instead of giving you a bunch of the different websites on here, I could just give you that. We have national resources. We have some local resources. We have a lot of the different mental health lines and websites and all of that in there. And then last is a video that's been created by the Therapy Online Assistance network that we are using to do therapy. It's about a 9-10 minute video, I think, just on coping with the coronavirus. And it's a really great video. So it's definitely worth taking a look at if you're interested. So this is where we're going to move into questions. I know that I had some questions submitted to me prior to the presentation or passed along to me. So I'm going to address that first, but please, I know we can't talk face to face right now. I know I can't see you or hear you, but use that chat or question and answer feature to send me some questions about what I do or anything. And I will try to do my best to answer it, and it will be passed along to me from the other panelists. So I'm going to start with, is your work more successful when you work with the UR coaches or with student athletes, and why? And I think that's a wonderful question. I think it depends on the situation of what I'm working with them on. If I'm working with them on like individual therapy, truly sort of like personal, what's going on in their life outside of sport, it's more important to be working with the student athlete. But I always think that the coaches need sort of a baseline knowledge information on mental health and what could be going on and what stressors and how are we viewing our athlete as a whole person. And so that's something that, again, I've been trying to do a lot of outreach about and getting that information out there. Now, that being said, when I do one of these ongoing programs with a team, I try to do the same session with the student athletes and also do it with our coaches. I think one of the big things about it is being able to speak the same language for the coaches to know what I'm working on. It really doesn't, it only helps so much if I am doing the work with our student athletes, teaching them all these skills, helping them to think about things differently and handle things differently, but the coaches don't know that. And they're, maybe asking different things of them, or what they are saying is sort of a different perspective. So I really like to be able to sit down and problem solve with the coaches as well, to be able to talk about, well, here's the approach I'm taking, and here's how I'm teaching them and training them. Here's the language that I'm using with them. Does this fit with what you're doing? And if not, can we find some middle ground to make this work? And so that most success comes when I'm working with both together. I think that's something that I really got to see in working with the football program this year, that we did the 6-week program, because I would do a session with the team. And again, we had to do it in small groups because they were position, that team is so big that it would be very hard to do that type of work with them. So we did all the position groups, and then the following week I met with the coaches on the very same thing. We did the same skills, but then we had a conversation about, well, how does this apply to you as coaches a little bit differently? How does your communication apply a little bit differently? Or this skill, the thing that I'm asking them to do, how can you reinforce that behavior? It's just like anything else. I'm only meeting with them once a week. So I need, in order for it to be successful, the people around them that are seeing them every day sort of need to be, like, we all need to be on the same page. So I highly value working as a collaborative team. So that would be my answer for that first one. And also, which sports have the greatest impact from my work? So again, I think that's a tough question to ask, because I don't think in general there's just one sport that can benefit most from this kind of work. I think it's across the board. I think we see things in more individualized sports, more of that sort of like performance anxiety piece or pressure piece. And in individual sports, it comes across differently than it does in team sports. And so I don't think there's just one sport that maybe has the greatest impact one way or the other. And I'm not sure if this question might have been asking specifically in my work at Richmond, which sport has had the greatest impact. I also don't know if I can answer that. I would say that's probably something for the student athletes to answer. But I think in general, anybody who is experiencing like any level of performance anxiety, or their body is doing what they need to do, they know that they physically can do what they want to do, but they're struggling to do it or to succeed at the level they want to succeed at, it tends to be something going on the mental side of things. So anybody that's happening with can be impacted by it. So let's see.
We do have another question, Rachel, in the question and answer. I don't know if you're able to see it, but are you finding this situation particularly hard on graduating seniors? Are larger percentages of seniors reaching out to you now? And how are your senior athletes doing knowing their college athletic careers may be over?
Yeah. Yes, I think this is absolutely harder on our graduating, or particularly hard, I don't want to say harder, on our graduating seniors for a lot of reasons. So for the season teams that were out of season, they didn't get that last semester with their peers were sort of going into the real world. They didn't get that time, that closure, that time to say goodbye to people that they even though they may still be able to do it, virtually, it's still not the same. To be honest, they just didn't get the social life that they maybe have missed out on for 4 years because they've been an athlete. And so they were going to get a couple months to be able to go do the things that they wanted to do on campus and with their peers that they aren't getting. And for our student athletes who are still in season or ending a season, so it's again different maybe for our men's basketball team than for our spring sports. I think it's that loss of a season and that loss of not knowing what could have come from it. We had some teams that were performing really well in the spring, and obviously our men's basketball team was doing really well heading into the tournament, and to not know what comes from that is so difficult. And people lose seasons for all sorts of reasons, but this is not like injury, illness, anything else, but this is something that's nationwide, an issue across the board. For you all, I don't know if you know this, NCAA has decided to grant a waiver for our spring sport athletes, all spring sport athletes, for another year of participation. But the details of it haven't been figured out yet. So we don't know if that's going to be everybody. We don't know exactly what that means and what that means on our conference level, because conferences can have different rules than NCAA, and then university level. Obviously, finances play a huge role in that. And so figuring out how to work all those details out. So some of our seniors may get to come back for another season. And at the same time, some of those people already have jobs lined up, already have next steps. And so that's something that puts more pressure on them then to decide, do they come back and take that year, or do they take the job that they already had offered? And some people are losing jobs that they had offered to them right now. I know we've started hearing from our students who job offers are being rescinded, and just because of where the economy is at, that then puts people who maybe have had jobs for months now in a position of not having that. So that part's really challenging, of course, for everyone. Some things, I know you asked, are more people reaching out? Not yet. And I foresee maybe something happening, but I think everybody is still in this flux. this is their second full week of classes. So people have maybe finally started getting into a routine. So I haven't had a significant amount of seniors reaching out to me for sort of individual work. What I do know is we plan to set up sort of a senior identity session. So for a lot of student athletes, and I know from my experience, I didn't feel really prepared I've been a student athlete my entire life. That's been my identity. That's been my number one identity. I was a volleyball player or a lacrosse player, and that's who I am. And now I'm stepping out of that role and I'm going into being a human, a functioning adult outside of this. And that's not my first priority anymore. And so how do I figure out who I am and the identity that I hold now? And that can be a really tough transition. So we had already planned to sort of make a session for our seniors sometime in April. And then all this happened. So now we're planning on doing a virtual session at some point, probably in about 2 weeks, and allowing them both to talk about like this and how hard this has been on them and losing this season and losing this time and whatever else that comes along with it. And then the second part of it is what comes next. And that's all still so uncertain right now. So I think a lot of people probably are struggling, and this isn't unique to college seniors. This is also high school seniors. Even other athletes are losing a year. Spring athletes are losing that semester, a year of not of eligibility, but of a season. And so it has ramifications for everybody. But yes, particularly, we feel for our seniors right now and everything we're going to, and we want to support them in any way that we can. So, are there other questions?
I think that's all that we've gotten so far. If there's any others, if you want to put it in the chat or the question and answer. I know we're getting close. We're at 10 o'clock, so some folks might have to hop off, but we'll give it another couple of seconds for some last minute questions if you have them. In the meantime, I just really want to thank you all for joining us. I know this is new for all of us, so we appreciate it. And thank you so much, Rachel. That presentation was awesome. I especially love the videos from the students. So
that's my favorite part for sure. Yes. Sorry, I realized I ran a little long there.
No, this is perfect.
Okay.
So I haven't seen anything else come in. Just a lot of thank yous from folks. And so we'll wrap it up here today. Again, thank you, Rachel. And I know that I've certainly learned a lot, and we all appreciate everything you do to provide the support for our student athletes, and then also appreciated that extra layer of help for us all who were able to tune in today. And so thank you all for joining us. And I hope you'll join us for some upcoming programs, including our next virtual First Friday, which will feature Dr. Libby Gruner on Friday, May 1st. And remember to check out our Facebook, Instagram, and alumni website for further information and to stay up to date on what's coming next. And we hope to see you soon, and hope you're all staying safe and healthy, and go Spiders. So thank you so much. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you. Thank you, Rachel.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Bye.